Today we're looking at evaluating absolute value. So, absolute value, it means the distance away from zero. So the absolute value symbols look like this, just two vertical bars, and there will be some stuff on the inside. So those are absolute values, and it means the distance away from zero. Actually, it's the distance away from zero on a number line. So it's really saying the inside. How far away from zero is the inside? How far away is the inside thing away from zero? So those are the things. I think it'll become clear once we do some examples. So let's take a look. So what is the absolute value of -5? So the question is, how far away is the inside away from zero? How far away is it? Well, that's really simple. If I had a number line, I could just see how far is -5 away from zero. How many tick marks? So I start here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this actually becomes a regular 5. So the absolute value makes negatives into positives because distance away from zero is always going to be positive. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's just move on to the next example. These are going to be pretty quick. All right, so what is the absolute value, actually the negative absolute value of -3? Well, you start on the inside. So we'll take the absolute, we're going to ignore that negative for now. But start on the inside. What's the absolute value of -3? That is just regular 3. So now the absolute values, I've evaluated that part, but there's still a negative on the outside. And remember, you can think of anytime there's not a number there, you can think of it as a 1. So it's like -1 times 3, or you can just write -3. So the only way an absolute value will give a negative is if there's a negative on the outside of it in front. So the only way you get a negative from absolute value is if there is a negative on the outside, and that was that part right there, negative on the outside. Let's look at doing some more math with absolute value. Should still be pretty simple. So I'm going to evaluate the inside first, and then evaluate the absolute value, meaning take negatives, change them into positives, and positives stay positives. That's the big idea here. So first, you look at the inside. So inside this first absolute value, they're kind of like parentheses. You deal with the inside first. -4 times -3. I'm not doing the absolute value yet, so I'm going to copy them down. -4 times +3. I think I said -3, whatever. -4 times +3 is -12. And then there's the times. And then I'll just copy that down. I'll do one at a time. Now, I'm going to evaluate this as if it's my own separate problem. -12 inside an absolute value becomes +12. I guess when I evaluate the absolute value, I'll change them into parentheses. Carry down the multiplication. Same idea here. Absolute value of -3 is regular 3. And then now I don't have any absolute values. I've evaluated them already. So 12 times 3 is 36. So that's what you do there. Let's look at one more example. Okay. Again, start with the inside of the absolute value, just like their parentheses. So 5 times -7. I'm not going to deal with the absolute value yet. I'll keep that there. I'll bring down the absolute values, but I'll do the inside. 5 times -7 is -35, and then I'll bring down the plus, and then I did not evaluate this yet. And then, well, I'll bring this negative down. I'm not going to evaluate that negative or do anything with it, but I will evaluate the absolute value. So I'll change that to parentheses. So I have, that negative parentheses. Absolute value of -35 is regular 35. Bring down the plus. Absolute value of regular 35 is regular 35. The distance away from zero is still just 35, so that's important. 35. And then a negative, this is just negative 35 plus 35. So that's 0, actually. It comes out to 0. So the big things to take away here are absolute values turn negatives into positives, and they leave positives alone. But that's only if they're the only thing inside. So you can't just take out this negative. You have to evaluate stuff because it gets more complicated on the inside. Evaluate it first. When there's one single number inside the absolute value, either negative or positive, then evaluate it. And that's it. Turns negatives into positives, really, and then leaves positives positive.